Hey everyone, welcome to the sizzling summer series of the Just Get Hired podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Fiesta George, and this is a new format for the summer. And if you guys like it, maybe we'll keep it. But welcome to Hot Takes. This is scorching conversations with top business influencers, career coaches, and previous guests. And we're going to tackle the hottest topics trending in the workplace today. We're here to serve up spicy nuggets of actionable information that you can easily digest. And guess what? This summer, our podcast is proudly sponsored by the Spicy Gnome Hot Sauce, which is offering flavor-packed experiences like no other. So buckle up, join us on a flavor-packed journey that will leave your taste buds craving for more. Well, I'm excited to introduce you guys to someone that I personally know and someone that I not only hired once, but I hired twice because she really is a recruiting badass. So I would like to welcome for the very first time, Caity Elkins to the Just Get Hired podcast summer series.
Hello.
Yay.
I've been a fan from afar, so truly honored and excited to be talking with you today.
Awesome. Well, in this episode, we're going to spice things up by exploring the diverse world of recruiters and the unique flavors that they bring to the table. So we're going to uncover some secrets behind the different types of recruiters that there are and how they heat up the hiring process. Are you ready?
Oh, yes.
All right. So I kind of alluded, you worked for me before, but why don't you, since you've never been on my show, tell people just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I feel like I was bred to be in recruiting. My mother has a career in recruiting, and so I kind of followed in her footsteps. I've been doing this for about 8 years now, and I actually met with you. It's really interesting because I put myself out there at a startup environment for ghost kitchens. And was honestly surprised when I had the fantastic interview with you and just thought things were falling into place. And ever since you hired me, I refuse to let you forget about me wherever you grow and go to. So ever since then, I'm like, hey, Jess, how's it going?
Yep. We will not name the former startup that we work for, but, we do work for a great company now, which we will not name, but you can find us on LinkedIn if you want to find out where we work. All right. So the topic of this episode is, there's different flavors of recruiters. So a lot of people think that all recruiters are created equal, which you and I know, being in recruiting, that is not true. There's so many different types of recruiters out there. So there are agency recruiters, corporate recruiters, sourcing, executive search, high volume. So what is your current flavor right now?
So for the past year, I've been really enjoying executive search, specific to vice president and above placements. So intricate details, typically like 3 to 6 months long searches, but definitely different than the high volume space corporate recruiter, which I've spent a little bit of time in each. So this one's interesting, definitely different, and I'm enjoying it. I still have a lot to learn.
So when I hired you, you were coming in and we were doing high volume recruiting, which could mean anywhere from like 20 positions all the way up to like 100, sometimes more. That's a lot to manage if you think about that. So can you maybe just tell the audience who might not be familiar with, recruiting and high volume, like, I guess, what sets executive search recruiters apart from other recruiters?
Absolutely. So when I think of executive search, I think white glove service, high executive presence, and super high touch, right? So you're talking to them weekly, if not every other day, for one placement or two placements, right? It's not speaking to 80 candidates and seeing them in a mass environment or at a event space or forum. It's really just honing in on those qualified candidates and playing that long game with them and trying to get them over the finish line. So I would say the biggest difference is I feel like in high volume, I would get job placements, every week or so. There was somewhat of a cadence to it, where executive search, it can take a while, but those wins are huge for the business and super high visible positions. So if you're successful at it, it can be really, really rewarding.
That's very true. Like, I know for high volume recruiting, you can get a placement probably every day. The cycle's not as long, like you mentioned. For executive search, I feel like you kind of have to stroke egos a little bit because you are talking to people who are not putting their resumes out there on LinkedIn. They're not letting people know that they're available, or
Absolutely.
they probably aren't really looking. But when you reach out to them, you do have to do a lot of like sales and kind of, relationship building with them. So I know that's a lot different than what you're used to. But you mentioned earlier that you have been on the corporate side. So corporate recruiting and high volume, maybe a little bit different. Can you maybe explain what corporate recruiting is?
Yes. So when I think of corporate recruiter or internal recruiting, I think of your culture champion. I think of the face of who your recruiting department is, probably the person that has a seat at the table when someone is leaving the company or you need to backfill a position. That's who I see as the corporate recruiter. Typically the face, and then also if you think of community engagements for corporations, they typically engage those candidate pools as well.
Okay. So if someone wanted to break into recruiting, where should they look to go first? What would you recommend?
So, funny enough, I get asked this all the time. I typically kind of ask them what they're looking for, what to get out of recruiting. You mentioned agency recruiting before. That can be more of like a commission, based environment, high speed, sense of urgency, less of that culture event, going to hiring events or having the executive search function. So I would just say whether someone's looking for a progressional career where they can start as a scheduler coordinator and work their way up, or if they want the business development sales side, agency might be a little bit of a better match for them. Both have their differences and both rewarding careers, but somewhat very different in the pace of which they do things.
Yeah, so I've worked in agency before, and so the pay model is also different. So I think definitely want to cover something like that maybe in a longer episode. But a lot of people like the agency side of the house because it is usually where you get paid per placement. So the reward is there versus like an internal or corporate recruiter where you get paid a base salary and then you might get bonus at the end of the year. So the different metrics. Agency is very fast paced as well. Corporate is a little bit slower because, not always have a lot of openings depending on turnover. So, I mean, how would you if you think back to your high volume days, how do high volume recruiters handle such a large scale of hiring?
So high volume recruiters, I would say I look at them as enablement. So when I was in high volume recruiting, I would think of every hiring manager has a tool belt, and I would try to put as many tools on their tool belt as possible, whether it's the ATS knowledge that they need to get a qualified, interested, affordable candidate through to the offer stage and able to onboard, whether it's where the candidates are, making sure they know the community groups, the employment services that they can connect with in their area to meet a larger number of people that are interested and looking for work quickly without you necessarily having to be physically present at each hire. I think that's key in high volume, is enabling them in a way that you don't physically have to be there for every single individual hire.
Okay. Now, there's different levels in recruiting. I kind of talked about sourcing recruiters. So those are a little bit different because they actually just contribute. They don't really make the calls all the time. So can you maybe touch on what a sourcing recruiter might focus on?
Absolutely. So you'll find these niche companies, and I think sources do really successful in those spaces because they're able to understand a candidate profile that can do well in multiple jobs at a certain company. So sourcers can, almost create a very tailored search to where if they meet these qualifications, we can find a place with them within our organization. And it doesn't really get as, you don't have to filter it beyond that. Typically, you're allowed to let the hiring team kind of filter from there or screen from there.
Okay. So we talk about agency recruiters, internal and corporate recruiters, some sourcing, executive search, and high volume. So based on everything that you're telling me, not all recruiters are created equal. Would you say that's accurate?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I think you have to flex different muscles at certain times, wear different hats, and not all of them are playing to your strengths. So I've seen super, super successful recruiters in every realm, and some of them don't want to, try the other side of it. So I think once you find what's good, go at it, because I do think it's a fruitful career and you can kind of take it as far as you'd like.
So I didn't prep you for this one, but the difference between recruiting and talent acquisition. Many times I try to correct people because people assume that I recruit on a daily basis. That is not what I do. I am more on the talent acquisition, which recruiting is a component of that. But maybe just for people who might not even understand that there is a difference, can you maybe explain what the difference is between recruiting and talent acquisition?
Without a doubt. I truly wish it was as easy as, hey, I want you to do this job, start tomorrow for me. But unfortunately, it's not. Unfortunately, it's not. So we have things in place like the applicant tracking systems, even what happens to a candidate after we identify that we want them to be an employee. How do they get from that system to onboarding as a day one employee? There are all systems communicating with each other and big strategies and budgets that overarch all those processes, which encompasses talent acquisition. So someone that is aware of budget, aware of the systems needed, and not just, at a career fair waiting for someone to come speak to them. There's a lot more levers and switches that are being turned on and off in the background. And we appreciate all those things. It makes it a lot easier to show up in person.
True. So I always tell people that talent acquisition is more strategic and then recruiting is more tactical. So the two intertwine at one point, but they are very different skill sets and different roles within an organization. So when people tell me, hey, can you go recruit for this position? I don't mind doing it. But there's also like, do you have a job description? What's the budget for this? Have we done a comp analysis for this? Where are you posting it? So I have like a million other questions before I actually go out and find that person. So that's to me what talent acquisition is. So would you say that's true?
Yes. Couldn't have said it better.
Okay. Awesome. Well, the point of the whole summer series is to keep these short and sweet episodes. So I think we pretty much covered as much as we could about this topic. Do you think we missed anything?
I don't. I'm excited to see how the rest of the series goes. Again, thank you for having me on, and it's been great that I could talk about something I actually feel pretty well versed in. So it's been awesome.
Well, you do an awesome job, and that's why I've hired you twice. So Caity, thank you again for being a guest, and I hope that I can get you to come back so we can talk a little bit more about this topic.
Awesome. I'd be excited.
I want to thank you guys for joining me on this Hot Take Summer Series. Just a reminder that these are frequent episodes that you're going to get on video, and I hope that you like this format because I'm going to feature some of your favorite LinkedIn and business influencers and a lot of previous guests that have been on my show before. So if you're ready to spice up your life, spice up your career, you got to go visit thespicygnome.com and then head over to my website, justgethired.com, because I have a lot of information on there. You can read more about me, how I can help you, and then I also have information about the guests who have been on my show. But if you like this format, let me know. Is it hot or is it not? Let me know what you think. Make sure you follow me, find me, and connect with me on LinkedIn by searching my full name, Jessica Fiesta George. Also, head over to my Instagram page, Just Get Hired. Let's connect there. Well, my name is Jessica Fiesta George, your host of the Just Get Hired podcast. What do y'all want to talk about next? I'll catch you on my next episode.